Welcome to Making Sense, the Guest Spotlight. My name is Alison Blackler and I have had the privilege of talking to some fantastic guests over recent times. You can hear their interviews here. I hope you enjoy. So, welcome everybody to this feature Spotlight guest for Making Sense. As you know, my name is Alison and I am delighted to be joined by my friend and colleague, Charmaine Pollard. Hi, Charmaine.
Hi, and I'm really pleased that you've invited me. It's just great to be able just to talk and share our work.
I love that. And that's what this is all about. It's just a light touch, but it's just helping people hear different people's thoughts, different experiences. So tell everyone a little bit about you. Introduce yourself first.
Okay, so I'm Charmaine Pollard. I've been a counsellor for over 25 years. I'm also a life coach and I'm a certified poetry therapist. And when I say I'm a poetry therapist, not many people understand what that is. So I'll just tell you a little bit about what that is. And essentially, it's using writing and poetry as a therapeutic tool. We can also use song lyrics. We could use scriptures from various different religions. It's just a way of getting you to just start writing, exploring and sharing and discussing things in a way we actually get on a deeper level, because writing can just take you to a deeper level as well and just tap into that unconscious stuff and bring it to life. And then we have an opportunity to talk and share and explore. Yeah, so that's a little bit about what poetry therapy
It all sounds so interesting, and I have had the privilege of watching Charmaine do some of her sessions, so we'll chat about that shortly. But I think you're right. Sometimes people don't know. They worry that it means they're going to have to write loads, and it's all this really complicated stuff, and that might trigger old thoughts of childhood of, well, I wasn't very good at school, I didn't like writing at school. But actually it's not that, is it, Charmaine? It is just helping people who often maybe don't know how to express themselves. They can't quite put words to how they're feeling, but actually when you are prompted and asked questions, suddenly stuff comes up, doesn't it? Tell everyone a bit about some of your experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes people think, oh, I can't write, or I can't write poetry. And it's not about the poetry per se. It's about using words and using the poetry and the writing as a springboard for discussion. So I started a group actually last night with Orthodox Jewish women. And one of the women there, first of all, said, oh, this reminds me of school. So sometimes it can bring you back to schools and tests, she said. And we don't want that. So it's not about, your spelling or your grammar or style or anything like that. It's just jotting some words down on a piece of paper. Doesn't even have to have any particular form. But just by doing that, you're sharing and you're exploring and you're talking in a way that you necessarily wouldn't do in if I was just to ask you a question. So, for example, there's a poem called I think it was I was worried, and what I might do is say, okay, so read the poem and then say, what are the things that you worry about? And that's just a great way in just to talk about things. And then what I often do, and all my work is about really building resilience. So apart from just talking about what you worry about, how can we change things? How can we make this better? What are those things that you worry about? But what else can you do to make those, so that you worry less? Or something like that. And then, other people, I often do this in groups, and other people will share what they do and share their wisdom. And you might say, I agree with that, and add more to it. Or it might be, no, actually, that doesn't work for me. But by the end of it, you've got a number of avenues and options to choose, that if you are worried about something, what you can actually do about it. Because I think it's really important in solving that situation per se. And you might not solve the problem, but it might be a way of worrying less. So it might be just writing things down and then getting things out of your head and on paper, and that just changes things and changes the shape of things.
There's no doubt writing things down does stop the loop of thinking, doesn't it, when people see things written down that they're maybe worried about. But I think the other thing that I think is beautiful about what you do, Charmaine, is rather than just say to somebody, here's a task, write down what you're worried about. By sharing a poem about worry, for example, if that was the poem you were talking about, you're almost giving people permission, aren't you, that it's okay to be worrying, because basically this poet has written this piece of work about worrying. So you're giving them that sort of acceptance and permission that it's normal and it's okay. And then they can then start to explore what's it like for them. And I love that, because, we can often say to people, do a sort of brain dump, if you like, of what you're worried about. And that's a blank piece of paper, which can cause people a problem. But actually, you're giving them something to think about first, aren't you? And then adding to, okay, what's it like for you? And I love that. I think that's such a gorgeous way of helping people.
Yeah. And I think what I find, particularly when you're in groups, is you then realize, oh, you worry about that. Oh, I would never have thought that. And there's something about normalizing that actually we worry about lots of different things.
Yeah.
And just being able to share it. And often sometimes, even like I was saying, the group last night, I'd never been in a type of group like that before, but just sharing that meant that she's building confidence. She's doing something that she's never done before. And just by being in a group like that, that's what it does. It also builds that confidence. So in another situation, she'll feel more confident about talking and expressing your feelings. And I think one of the things we're pretty good at sharing a story about a situation that we've experienced. But what about your feelings? How do you feel in relation to that story? And I think that's what I'm good at, really trying to draw out the feelings so that we can explore that and make sense of the things that we're going through. And like you said, Alison, we've worked in the prisons together, and you've seen how when we're working with men in the male prisons, how something just sparks when they hear other people sharing the difficulties and recognizing that they often feel the same or quite similar. And it gives permission for people to be a little bit more vulnerable and talk about things.
I think so. And I think that, honestly, the more I have worked in this industry, and a bit like you have been in it for a long time, that piece of people, we are all unique. However, lots of people are processing in a similar way. All of us have worries. The brain does worry. It's a risk averse. It's constantly scanning for, am I okay? Am I okay? Is this safe? Is this safe? And we are going to have worries. But I think, again, just that piece of sharing something like that, not having to think about, you have to go for it, thinking for yourself first, because we're going to look at what this poet has written about this topic, and then we can embellish that. And I think I can just see how and why your work is so powerful for people to be able to pause. And I think the other thing that I want us to come back to, which is what you've just said, Charmaine, is so many people don't pause to think about how do they actually feel about what's happened. They'll run the story, won't they, of what's happened, and that person said this and this happened, and all the stuff that people go on and on and on about. But actually pausing and thinking, what did that trigger in me? Was I cross? Was I upset? Did I feel frightened? And actually just pausing, again, is just so powerful, isn't it? So simple and yet so powerful.
Yeah. And I think we lead such busy lives that we don't stop to just pause and think about, how do I feel about this? What do I want my response? I want my response to be? And I know you came to my women's group a few weeks ago, and they just absolutely loved what you did with them. And actually today again, we were at group today, and they were talking about the very thing what you were saying. How do I want to show up today? What do I want the outcome to be? And they've been through various difficulties throughout the weeks in this program, and that's still coming up as almost like the number one thing that they go back to. How do I want to show up? What do I want the outcome to be? So you did a fantastic, gave them a fantastic tool recently. Brilliant. So that'd be something that would be really useful for people to hear.
Because people don't, do they? We often know what we're doing. We often know what's stressing us out, what's not done. Where everybody's got their lists of things that they haven't achieved yet, and they're comparing themselves to others. But actually just pausing and thinking, for this day, how do I want to be? How do I want it to go? We're so busy on this sort of track that I think things like writing down your work, poetry, just pausing. I've created a journal, which is a little place for people to just write every morning and every evening. Some little questions for you to fill in. I used to say to people, get a book and here's some headings, and they didn't. So I've created this lovely book, and it's just a pause. Yeah. But you're going to write it down. So that means you're connecting your head, your heart, how do you feel about it, and your hand. And there is just something so fabulous in that. And I know that obviously you're 100% there with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sometimes some people ask me, we use electronic, machines all the time to sort of write, but it's what you said, it's that hand, heart, and using your hand to write, if you can, it really makes a difference, I think, than rather than when you're doing, you're writing via computer or something like that, because sometimes just the way you've written something can reveal something. So you might think, oh, I've written that really small. I wonder what that is. I wonder what that means. How it shows up on the page is also something to really start thinking about.
And that's why we're curious, can't we, about what that is? I think that's what we say in there, just remembering. Sorry, I put it in there.
Yeah. So and it's that, really being curious, and that is the suggestion sometimes, is just to bring some and Victoria Field, who brought this training over to the UK, she often says, bring some curiosity to your writing when you do write. And I think sometimes when we talk about journaling, people think you've got to write loads, but actually, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 lines, 3 words, we could all find 5 minutes, and it's just really creating that habit of just writing, and writing, 2 or 3 good things that happen that day. So it just focuses and changes the way you think. And the feedback that was coming up, because I'm 10 weeks into a 20-week program called Writing for Resilience, and I'll just show my book. I don't know if you can see.
We'll put the details in the notes, Charmaine.
Okay. And so we've been following the Writing for Resilience program, which is it's a workbook. And one of the things I've been asking, because we're 10 weeks in, what's been the biggest takeaway? And a lot of what the women were saying is that opportunity to pause and just to write things down. And it slows things down a little bit, and some of them say they're overthinkers. So by writing it down, it slows things down. And one of them was saying how one of her affirmations, because in the book it tells you about how to write your own affirmations, and one of hers is, I am good and strong, and then she changed that to I am good and powerful. And I then asked her, I said, so now you feel that you're good and powerful, how does that impact in your day-to-day interactions, when you go to work, the things that you do? And she was saying that because of that, she makes different decisions. She really thinks about the decisions that she makes. And she says, and even if I make the same decision I made before, it's not been made out of a panic. It's something that I've thought through, and it's what I want to do, and I'm happy with that decision.
And isn't that nectar for you to hear that somebody who's on your program has had that realization, is pausing, may make the same decision, but may not, but is doing it with quite a conviction to herself. And for me, when I hear things like that, that just brings me great joy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just hearing the feedback and the different things that they've achieved, and also watching what they've done through the coaching and one person's one of her goals was to refurbish her home. And she's, and at the beginning it was like, oh no, I struggle to get started. Where do I start this so much? And then we worked through, setting a goal. Why is the goal important? What might be the barriers and all of that? And now she's got to a place where, almost finished doing the fireplace. So it's really, and because we're in a WhatsApp group as well, we've got pictures of the beginnings of, the starting the starting of the start of the job, and now we're getting to the place where we're seeing that fireplace just changing and changing form, and her growth as well, and in terms of, and once you start a goal, it makes you more motivated to set other goals, doesn't it? Once you start seeing where you're getting, and because that's a really tangible goal, it really has helped, and it's great just seeing how she's come along during these weeks.
Yeah, and I think what I'm hearing there, which I think is really important to remember, is when you have got a goal, so do your whole house, great goal, but we can't focus on just that because it's too big, it's too overwhelming. So chunking it right down, I'll do the fireplace, or I'll get a new whatever, or I'll change the curtains or something, so that everything is a little step. And I'm often a fan of saying, what's your one small thing that you can do today that'll help you towards whatever it is that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry, just to say, and somebody else talked about, it's not the big goal, it's that little step, exactly what you're saying. It's that little step, those little things that I've been doing that have made the difference to the way I feel and my moods. So what you're saying there absolutely is definitely.
And I think the other thing that we have to add here, which I'm very passionate about, is making sure that the thing that you are trying to do is for you. It can be for others as well, people who are parents and all these things, but it's so important, isn't it, to follow your dream and your path, not be influenced in the wrong way by someone else. Because I think, again, you're more likely to achieve it if you're doing it, but it takes usually some tweaks and things to actually get people on the path of actually saying, I'm driving my own bus. I mean, I've got stories for myself about that, where I wasn't doing that and I wasn't happy. I was, in fact, I was miserable because I was trying to do things to keep everyone else happy and missing myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is so important that you are driving your own bus. And one of the conversations that we had, and it'd be good just to share, was one person had shared her vision board and talked that through, and another woman was saying, well, I don't want to share that with other people because sometimes, the responses that I get aren't favourable. And so I was reminding them that it's important to share with those people who celebrate you, because that's going to help you move a bit further. And, there's some people, I make a choice about who I share my wins within the things that I do. And I just reminded them of a quote that I'd heard before, and I'll just read it out. Don't present your pearls before swine, meaning to give or offer something valuable to someone who does not understand its value. And sometimes people can also stop you from achieving those goals. So it's really important who you're choosing to share your dreams and your goals with.
Pick your cheerleaders, because there'll be lots of doubters out there. There'll be lots of people who aren't happy for you, and that's not about you, that is actually about them. But I've fallen, some of my stories, I've fallen short of that, and it massively holds you back if you listen to the people who are your doubters. But your cheerleaders who get you, who are just 100% there, whatever it is that you want to do, go for it.
I love that phrase. Pick your cheerleaders.
Yeah, we all need some cheerleaders, don't we? Without judgment, without anything, your cheerleaders will be there for you and be happy whatever you're doing, and put their own stuff aside. And I think that's a proper cheerleader.
Absolutely.
Oh, I could chat all day with you, Charmaine. We've got so much we can do. Maybe we could do another one of these in the future as well. So thank you so much for your time and coming and sharing some of your stories and your wisdom, and of course your talent with your writing and your work that you do. I think it sounds brilliant. It sounds like your group are getting such a lot of value from the work that you're doing with them.
Yeah. Okay. And thank you so much, Alison. I really appreciated this opportunity to talk. And and just remind people, pick your cheerleaders.
Yeah.
So important to moving forward.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, we'll put your book and everything into the notes for this, because we're obviously on YouTube. So underneath, make sure, have a look and check out Charmaine's socials and also her book, which I have a copy of here.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Thanks, Alison.
Thanks, Charmaine.
All right. Take care.